Welcome to On the Road with me, Nigel Farage, leader of the Brexit Party. As you can see, I'm here in this mobile studio in a van. We're going to travel around the country over the next 5.5 weeks. Tonight, I'm here in Ashfield. I've been today earlier in Bolsover. So I'm spending my day in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, the East Midlands, an area that tends to vote for Labour MPs, but tends now not just to vote for Brexit, but also to have MPs who, despite all their promises in the 2017 general election, now all support Remain, want a second referendum with a choice of Remain v Remain. So the point of this is to get my reflections as I go round every day, but more importantly, to get your thoughts, views and your questions. So we're streaming live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and I welcome your questions. As we go round, we'll have guests, we'll do interviews. But before I start with my first day of this general election campaign, just a few thoughts. Tonight is the 5th of November. We remember it, don't we, back from 1605, gunpowder, treason and plot. What was it all about? An attempt to blow up the House of Commons. Now, it's been seen over the years that somehow this was a Protestant v Catholic debate, and many Roman Catholics in Britain felt unhappy about it. That's all the wrong way around. What it was about is that the first Brexiteer in our country was Henry VIII. We left the Church of Rome because we wanted to become independent. And all those years later, there was a plot to overthrow the independence of England. And that's what it was all about. And of course, Guy Fawkes and the other co-conspirators were caught and, in those times, not ours, executed. There are some parallels here, aren't there? I mean, we voted for Brexit, albeit just 3.5 years ago, and there are still people in our establishment who want to overturn the result. So let's hope in the future we have November the 5th when we're no longer under threat of those that want to overthrow the result. A bit of good news today, really good news today. He's gone. Bercow has gone. That preening, self-important, ghastly man that's been our speaker for the last 10 years, who rather than being a nice neutral umpire respected by all, decided that he himself had to become a political player, and boy wasn't he. At times going back to 1604, even before the gunpowder plot, and quoting precedent in his judgments, at other times making it up as he went along and allowing backbenchers, not the government, to put legislation down before Parliament. Not just that, giving us his views on President Trump and many other things. Oh, and I almost forgot, the car sticker that said the B word to Brexit. And the B word, which I won't repeat, because I think, you know, it's all well and good having fierce political debate, but the depths of vulgarity that the Liberal Democrats have sunk to, I think we're a little bit better than that as a country. The other little thought today, and it's gossip, it's rumour, but the city and the financial press are full of stories about just how much trouble Deutsche Bank are in. Their share price has fallen 25% in the last year, and I'm not saying they're going to go under tomorrow, but lots of stories about their liquidity crisis. And I think, if I really think about Brexit, you know, we're tied to something that is failing economically, not succeeding politically, that has a currency that has divided Europe from north to south, and in the end isn't going to work. A friend of mine said, Nigel, don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter because the train's going to hit the buffers. Well, the answer is, I don't want to be on that train when it does hit the buffers. So today, day one. Now, you may well know, I've said I won't stand as a candidate. I've got to tell you, tonight I'm feeling liberated by that decision. Why? Well, someone said, oh, Nigel, really? Mrs. May, she stood as a candidate and led the general election in 2017. Yeah, sure, in Maidenhead, a safe Tory seat where a pig's bladder on a stick could get elected for the Conservative Party. We are just 6 months old. And for me to try and win a seat would mean spending nearly all of my time in that constituency. I reckon I'm far better off touring the length and breadth of the UK over the course of the next 5.5 weeks, putting out 3 big key messages. Started off this morning in Bolsover in a boxing gym. I'm here tonight in Ashfield. I've been out doing street walkabouts. 3 big messages for me in this campaign. Number 1, 5 million Labour Leave voters, you have been completely and utterly betrayed by the Labour Party. They promised you during the campaign, after the referendum campaign, and in the general election, they were going to respect your vote. They have done no such thing. They now want a second referendum. In fact, Diane Abbott set out the case beautifully. They're going to win the election, go to Brussels, negotiate a new deal, put that to a referendum, and then campaign against the deal they've negotiated themselves. I mean, you couldn't really make this stuff up, could you? But either way, what Corbyn is saying is the referendum will be Remain against a form of Remain. It is a complete and utter betrayal, a throwing of sand in the eyes of Labour voters, Labour Leave voters in constituencies like this here in Ashfield. So point number 1 is to get out around the country and to say to people, look, if you're a Labour Leaver, do not vote for the Labour Party. Indeed, the blessed Lord Adonis said that himself just a few months ago. The second, of course, is on Boris's Great New Deal, as he calls it, or Old New Treaty, as I do. It is simply just not Brexit in any way at all. It takes us in to a next phase of 3 years of negotiations where Barnier has set out the terms already. To have a free trade deal with the EU, we must surrender fishing. To have a free trade deal with the EU, it would have cost us, from start to finish, nearly £65 billion. To have a free trade deal, we're going to have regulatory alignment on social policy, employment legislation, environmental law, even taxation, even the idea we could cut corporation tax, for argument's sake, to become more competitive than Ireland or elsewhere. Barnier would cry foul if we did those things. So you look at it, and frankly, it isn't leaving at all. It does not get Brexit done, which is what Boris is telling everybody. And hey, isn't that tempting? 3.5 years of torture. Let's get Brexit done. Thank you, Boris. Isn't that great? But the truth is, it leads us on, as I say, to a minimum of 3 years of negotiations of a trade deal whose terms are already unacceptable. I've said to Boris, ditch the deal. But I would say this tonight, at a minimum, absolute minimum, guarantee us, Boris, that we'll be out next year, that we'll be out in December next year, either with a trade deal with no political strings or with a genuine, clean break WTO Brexit. I wonder whether he will. Mind you, he told us we were leaving on the 31st of October, do or die. So whatever he says, whatever he does, it's going to be very difficult to believe him. This the man who twice voted against Mrs May's EU treaty, telling us it'd be a suicide vest around the necks of British democracy, telling us it would lead to vassalage. Then on the third time of asking, he voted for it, and now as Prime Minister, he's picked it up and kept 95% of it. So trusting Boris on this issue is difficult. I think Boris Johnson wants to use Brexit as a means of becoming Prime Minister for the next 5 years. Who knows? Nominations close in 12 days' time. He may move towards our position. We will see. Because what's for certain, despite everything you read in the press, is the Brexit Party candidates are full of vim and vigour and energy. They are up for this fight. Of that was no question. And the third reason I'm doing this, and the third reason I will be, and I've got 60 events booked already around the country, my second one about to take place here in Ashfield in a moment. The third reason is, in a democracy, people deserve a choice. And let's bear in mind that Remembrance Sunday is coming up this weekend. Our forebears fought for the right for us to be a free, independent nation who made their own decisions about their future, and that involves choice. And in this election, we have a choice. In fact, there's 4 choices on the menu. Number 1, the Lib Dems. Jo Swinson, who today told us she's going to be the next Prime Minister. I mean, ha ha, don't put too much of your hard-earned dough on that. But Swinson is simple. Vote for us. We will revoke Article 50. We will scrap what was the result of the greatest democratic exercise in British history. Option 2, the Labour Party, who think you're cretins if you voted to leave, and you must vote again. And we're giving you a great choice. It's Remain or Remain. Then we have Boris, blustering Boris, who would die in a ditch, who's offering you a Remainers Brexit from which we would never truly be free. Then there's the Brexit Party saying we want to honour the result. 17.4 million people saying we want to leave the institutions of the European Union. And that's the third reason I'm doing this and going all around this country, is to make sure people have that choice on the ballot paper. Whether they take it or not is entirely up to them. But in a democracy, they do at least, I think, deserve that choice. It's early days. But I would say this. For me, the main target vote for the Brexit Party, and of course, Euroscepticism crosses all the old divides of left and right, but I do think those 5 million Labour Leave voters have been absolutely betrayed in every way. Now, joining me in this, our first live broadcast of On the Road, and we are literally on the road, is Martin Daubney. He's our prospective parliamentary candidate for this constituency I'm in now of Ashfield, where the sitting Labour MP, Gloria De Piero, is standing down. Yeah. And Martin, we've been out on the road today, haven't we?
Do you know what? It's just been an amazing time.
We've eaten fish and chips.
We have.
We've been bought pints of beer in a pub.
Yeah. Cake.
I mean, the chances of our weight going down are about 0.
Yeah, you've already warned me about this.
But you stood in the European elections.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, Daubney here, who is a hate figure to some,
Thank you.
was the founder of Lads magazine Loaded. Tell us about that, Martin.
Well, that was a tremendously great period of time. I was there for 8 years as the editor. We were the magazine that people loved to hate. In fact, we were almost like the Brexit Party before it existed. We specifically existed to annoy all the right people. We were torching snowflakes before the term was even invented. We were always on the receiving end of lovingly crafted fan letters from feminists, Guardian readers, you name it, we offended them. When I left there, I became a bit more thoughtful. I got involved in men's mental health work, charity work. I started campaigning on the forgotten working class kids, particularly boys in Britain who had no political representation. I was speaking in Parliament, oftentimes as close as this, to Tories, to Labour MPs who nodded approvingly and did nothing. And I came to the conclusion that these people, these communities have been utterly abandoned, and oftentimes they were Labour communities. Fast forward to where we are right now in Ashfield, where my mum has lived for 21 years, a dyed-in-the-wool Labour seat.
Been Labour forever, isn't it?
Been Labour forever. It almost went Conservative last time, because guess what? Lots of Labour voters popped their Tory cherry because they actually believed Theresa May would get Brexit done before that phrase was invented, and they were severely let down.
It was Brexit means Brexit then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that was utterly betrayed. De Piero is an interesting one, because here we have the embodiment of everything that went wrong with Labour. Voted to remain, campaigned to remain, voted for the Ban Amendment. Here is somebody who could not be more diametrically opposed to her electorate. 70% leave. Now we're hearing, has the mood changed? Let me tell you, Nigel, everybody out there, the mood is even more passionate for Brexit. We've been knocking on doors all around here in Eastwood, in Kirkby, in Sutton, in Brinsley, in Underwood. They're not talking about anything else apart from Brexit. This is a Brexit election. And I really think that despite all those gloomy polls out there, the mood is still very, very strong for the Brexit Party.
I don't doubt that for a moment. I don't doubt people want Brexit to be delivered. But there are two problems.
Yeah.
One is Boris is masquerading as Brexit, and I've discussed that already. on this first show of On the Road. Yeah. But the other problem is I've met people who've said to me, Nigel, I voted for the first time in my life in that referendum. I thought it really mattered. They'd given us the chance to make that decision, which makes me think, heading on from here, about political reform and the way things need to be in the future. But they say, look, we voted in that, we've never voted before, it's not been delivered, why should we ever vote again?
There is certainly a lot of apathy, but there is also a lot, just like in the Euros. You remember that mood where we had so much anger that with a 5-minute conversation, we were able to rekindle that political drive. And I think we can definitely do that in Ashfield. Apathy, I think, isn't so much an issue here. There is still a huge amount of rage, and guess what? A lot of people, when I was campaigning back in the summer, when Boris just come in, when his treaty was still getting signed off, they were saying, I'll wait and see what Boris does. You know the mood now? They absolutely feel that he's failed them. They really, really do. There's no Boris bounce around here. And we knocked on 200 doors yesterday. We found 2 Labour voters in a Labour seat. And we found a lot of people who had previously voted Labour, and now they are spitting on the grave. It's Jeremy Corbyn. They cannot get over the Corbyn factor. They just cannot swallow it.
Yeah, he's a real problem, isn't he?
He's such a toxic presence in seats like this. So I think we could be in for a real surprise in this seat. Now, I feel really positive. The mood on the doorstep is brilliant. Today, the Wetherspoons...
All candidates are optimistic, though, Martin. And you've got to be.
But away from the bubble, away from the headlines, away from all the rubbish you get on Twitter, when you talk to people on doorsteps, it's a different galaxy. That's the point of you being on the road, meeting voters, getting out into provincial towns, the Midlands. Tomorrow you're up north. The mood is so different. And I still think it's really buoyant for us. I really, really do. And tonight sold out in a matter of hours.
We're in there very soon. Yeah,
we are.
We're in an old colliery club is where we're going to be.
That's right. It's Bentic Miners Welfare. Yeah. It's one of the last miners' welfares around here. My dad's coming down. He was a miner for 47 years. So we're going to have a few jars together after this. To me, this is my homeland. It's my spiritual homeland, and it's a spiritual homeland of Brexit too. Yes. It really is beating strong out here, and the mood's really buoyant. And I can't wait to get started.
Can I raise something with you?
Yeah.
Which has not been debated or discussed in British politics now for over 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a word that if you dare to even touch upon it, you get demonised. I know, I've had years of it. But isn't it astonishing that immigration has completely disappeared?
Yeah.
The other parties don't want to discuss it. The Labour Party at their conference voted for free movement to be extended to many other parts of the world, not just Europe. Boris wants to have amnesties for illegal immigrants, and I would argue the 39 dead people, mostly from Vietnam, that we saw in Grays and Essex the other week were a result of a country that says if you come here illegally, we're never going to send you back. How do you sense in this area? I mean, one of my thoughts is this. This is sort of coming to you quite cold. You've not been briefed on this.
Yeah.
I'm struck with the health crisis. I'm struck with the infrastructure crisis. Yeah. I'm struck with the fact that our population is heading inexorably towards 70 million by the end of the next decade, and that nearly 80% of that is a direct result of immigration policies. Do people care about this anymore?
They do. So today, you remember in the fishing shop back there, we had a very impassioned chat with a guy who was saying, why is nobody talking about this anymore? And a lot of people are saying that, and the political class and the media class, I think, are afraid of having a conversation. And I think we're back where we were before Brexit.
That's right.
Because
it wasn't allowed to be talked about.
Precisely. And the BBC denied a conversation on that for decades. You know, you started that conversation and you're immediately branded a racist and a xenophobe. But the point is, you were saying what people were thinking. Now, it's been brushed under the carpet again. Labour's decision to open the doors to the world is absolutely being talked about in Ashfield. They're going, what the hell is going on? Is this true? And isn't it funny how Labour has suddenly gone quiet on that? So it went down like the proverbial.
And so the Tories under Boris,
who
of course has always been pro-free movement. It's very interesting, Martin. I tell you what, folks, immigration was the #1 issue in British politics for several years. I'm going to say this. I think I had something to do with that. And of course, at the time, there was a British National Party who were also talking about it, although not in the way that I was talking about it. They were doing it, I think, out of sheer resentment, perhaps bordering on hatred. I was doing it about numbers, about reasonableness, about saying, why don't we have a sensible points-based system, doesn't discriminate against Australians and Indians in favour of Romanians, but treats the world equally. And I tell you what, over the course of the next few weeks, I'm going to start talking about this, because it's about time we jolly well did. Martin, thank you.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah.
Very good luck. Here in Ashfield, here in the old coal mining areas, about to do an event in a colliery club, way outside the Westminster bubble. This is day one of On the Road. Thank you.